For Walt Weiss, among his 14 great years as a player in the big leagues, there were 4 very good years in Denver, where he called Larry Walker a teammate, and Walt good enough to join us to take some time on the program on Thursday. Hey, Walt, good morning. If we were to give you, like, the stage and as much time as you wanted to stump for Larry Walker being a Hall of Famer, how would you begin the argument?
Well, yeah, I feel strongly about this, Matty. I think when you dig in on Larry's case, to me, it's a slam dunk. I mean, 12th all time in slugging, ahead of guys like Mays, Mantle, Aaron. 15th all time OPS. You know, I played with several Hall of Famers over the course of my career, and people ask me who's the best player you ever played with. It's Larry Walker. When you take into consideration everything he could do on a baseball field, he's a marvelous talent. And I've heard the counter arguments, and I get it. People usually go to the fact that he missed a lot of time and that he played at Coors Field. Well, when you focus on those two arguments, you can look at WAR as it relates to missed time. But WAR, as we know, is a cumulative stat, and it'll account for missed time. Well, Larry's career WAR 72.6, the average Hall of Famer career WAR 69. So he's still a Hall of Famer when you focus on the negatives. 31% of his career at bats or plate appearances were at Coors Field. He did tremendous damage on the road. 865 road career OPS, which is equal to or higher than Clemente, George Brett, Ken Griffey Jr., Reggie Jackson, Tony Gwynn, and nobody would argue that those guys are Hall of Famers. They're I think most of them or all of them were first ballot. So I think even when you focus on the negatives, Larry's a Hall of Famer, and by the way, the peripherals. I mean, for me, other than Andrew Jones, he's the best outfielder I saw over the course of my career. One of the best base runners that I ever saw. You know, I know AH was an outstanding base runner, and we played in an era with some really good ones. You know, Roberto Alomar comes to mind. Paul Molitor, two of the best I saw. With Larry's right there with those two guys. As far as base running, and by the way, stole 230 bases as a big man that could really run. So,
man, Walt, you're loaded with the numbers. I mean,
no,
Walt,
I feel strongly. I really
yeah.
do. I think when you really dig in, and I started digging in on this a few years ago, it really blows you away what this guy accomplished over the course of his career.
So, Walt, I want to ask you this. Yeah, like Matt said, you blow everybody away with the numbers. And also, You touched on a little bit seeing him. But one of the most dramatic things you said was he's the best player you ever played with. And people may not understand. You played with McGuire. You played with Ricky Henderson. You played in Colorado with a bunch of great players.
10 Hall of Famers.
10 Hall of Famers you played with. And I'm not sitting here pushing back on you. When I saw Larry Walker, my brief time in spring training in Colorado, I could not believe what I saw from this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, jumped off the charts. So all that said, to ask you, what was your aha moment when you realized, wow, this guy's different?
I think 97, his MVP season. Again, you want to dock him for the Coors Field stuff. The guy slugged 733 on the road that year.
Yeah.
His numbers on the road in his MVP season were better than his Coors Field numbers. I think that season obviously was the highlight of his career. He put it all together. But this guy had amazing instincts on the field. You know, I played in Atlanta the last 3 years of my career, and I got to be around Greg Maddux, who saw the game and thought the game at a different level than just about anybody I'd been around. And I loved having baseball conversations with Maddux because you always learn something. Well, to me, Larry was the position player version of Greg Maddux. He saw the game at a different level, and it's crazy because he didn't grow up playing the game a whole lot. He grew up in Canada and had to play in the summer. They didn't play during the school year, so he played mostly hockey. But this guy ended up being one of the most instinctual players that I saw, and he could think at a different level when it came to the game.
Man, that's a great case for Larry Walker. I think you've got a lot of people's attention with some of that. Let's pivot, if we may use the shortstop nomenclature for a moment here, Walt, with you on the line. And we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you, because of your experience as a player, as a manager, and a coach, with all the news about what happened in Houston and in Boston. There have been some that have been quick to say, hey, look, this is happening everywhere. To your experience, are these isolated incidents around the big leagues, or is, in fact, the whole league involved in some form of this kind of technology gate?
I think it's pretty isolated, Matty. I think it's overblown that this was rampant throughout the game. For sure, I feel that way. Now, look, was there a temptation with monitors and instant replay? Did your mind go down that road? Sure, but you had to jump through a lot of hoops to actually pull off what was going on in Houston. And maybe we'll find out there's some other places where this was going on, but it was pretty complicated what they were doing and what they were able to pull off. That was not happening throughout the game, and as a staff member in particular that you don't go there. We've all tried to steal signs on the field with our own eyes. That's a skill as far as I'm concerned. But to go around that and to use the technology that's available to us now to create a competitive advantage, everybody knows that was a no-no.
Very well put. Very well put. The one thing we've discussed is, as we're going to move into in the future weeks, solutions. You're going to start hearing how we're going to fix this or that. I think the biggest challenge is, I call this the video generation. Tony Gwynn looked at video and everybody's like, wow, video. He watches swings. But Walt, when I go to camp or I watch batting practice, that's what every hitter does. Every swing, they go back and look at it. So I look at this as a generational growth. So that's going to be a challenge. How might you see that presented?
No, you're right, H. I mean, a lot of guys these days, right after they're at bat, they go right to the video room, and I get it. I mean, it's information that you want. It's it's the visual that you want to see after you're at bat. So I get it, but maybe it's extreme, but maybe you have video-free zones, as it relates to the dugout,
Yep.
and those areas of the clubhouse are off limits over the course of the game.
I agree.
I think that's where we're heading, quite possibly.
Hey, you guys in Atlanta, Walt, people have noticed certainly the talent on the field, but I think people in baseball really respect the group in the coach's room and the group that Snit has put together. And it doesn't go without notice that you guys are close, that you guys get together at the winter meetings. I think that's probably something that started under Bobby, the morning coffee that everybody has together. You've been a part of teams that probably didn't have that kind of close-knit coaching staff before as a player down in your career. What kind of impact does that have? Is it measurable, a tight coaching staff? Can you translate that into wins?
That's a great question, Matty. It's hard to quantify it, obviously, but I do think it's a factor. We have a great group in Atlanta. Alex and his team has done a great job of not only putting that group together, but keeping it together. There's a great respect back and forth between the players and the coaches and Snit. I do think that's a strength for us. Again, how to quantify that, I don't know, but I do think that that is one of our strengths. We have a really good group that gets along, that works hard. The smart, we're in tune to the the new information that's available to us, and we embrace it. But we have, we combine the feel of the game and the experience that we have in the game with the new information. I think it's worked out really well.
It's something that we all kind of appreciate, too, from where we sit. Walt, thanks for the time today. Thanks for the perspective. Thanks for the great stumping for Larry Walker, too. I think that got a lot of people's attention, and we're hopeful, as you are, that things go his way on Tuesday.
Yeah, okay, guys. I appreciate it.